Electronic Arts may not have the best reputation among players, but they sure do have a lot of fan-favorite games, at least back in the day. Though they have a habit of bringing dead franchises back, only to kill them off again. And every time it's like a punch in the gut. So with EA bringing back Skate and turning it into a free-to-play online-only game, it makes me wonder, will Skate suffer the same fate as all these other franchises, or does it have a better shot at achieving success? Well, today we're taking a look at those beloved and forgotten franchises EA brought back, teased us with, and then never did anything with again. Expect some nostalgia and heartbreak, because I know I sure did. And if you enjoyed content like this, and even content not like this, consider liking and subscribing. Now in 2008, Mirror's Edge was this breath of fresh air for first-person games. While it wasn't entirely successful, it did gain a cult following. In a time when Call of Duty, Halo, and many other first-person shooters were trying to be gritty, dark, and edgy, Mirror's Edge was the complete opposite. Faith didn't excel at gunplay, and combat was mediocre, but these were simply a means to a quick end, when the option was to either fight it out or run away. With a focus more on movement and momentum, what truly set it apart was its art style and its choice of bold, bright colors. However, a promising start to a planned trilogy ended with DICE's pitch for a sequel being rejected. And after years of wondering if we would ever see a new game, we were finally teased of one in development. This was Mirror's Edge Catalyst, a complete reboot that explored the origins of Faith. With no ties to the original, those who did play it would not just be familiar with the controls, but also certain characters, corporations, and lore that was reimagined into this new story. It's here where DICE would attempt to fix the criticisms of the original. Now we had an open world, gunplay was dropped completely, but combat wasn't as satisfying. Faith gained access to a grapple, but also disrupted the game's momentum, and there was more focus on the story. While it wasn't as good as the original, or as bold in its art style, it still stood out from most games at the time. But worst of all, Catalyst ended on some pretty major cliffhangers. And for a game EA was going all out on with merchandise, a prequel comic, even a television adaptation that never happened, it's a shame Mirror's Edge died the way it did, because clearly DICE has deep love for the series. But while Mirror's Edge didn't get much room to grow, Dead Space was, at least at one point, a prominent franchise for EA. Spanning not just video games, this expanded into comics, novels, and even animated movies. EA was all in on creating this large Dead Space universe. As Dead Space went on, it slowly drifted more into survival action than survival horror. By Dead Space 3, EA's interference broadened the game's appeal with more action, added in microtransactions, and implemented co-op in the middle of production. This left Dead Space 3 with mixed reception, and is often regarded as the worst in the trilogy. And between Dead Space 2 not being as commercially profitable as everyone thought, and Dead Space 3 ending up worse, for EA, they were done. No Dead Space 4, no resolution to the cliffhangers in Dead Space 3, and Visceral Games was shut down years later. So when this trend of horror remakes started with Resident Evil 2, EA surprised us all with a remake of the first game in 2023. Developed by Motive Studio, this remake is close to the original while making changes that benefits the story and gameplay, like developing the characters more and including new optional side missions that expand the lore. It ended up being a really good remake, but this didn't translate into sales, and if money isn't made, then EA isn't happy. So plans of a Dead Space 2 remake, and even an idea for an original sequel to the remake were both cancelled. Let's go back to a time when so many were chasing the popularity of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. We had a ton of clones from skateboarding, surfing, BMX. Basically, if it was a sport that could translate well into an arcade-like experience, everyone wanted in. While EA's SSX wasn't the first snowboarding game, it stood out thanks to its wacky characters, unbelievable courses, and insane tricks, all matched by some iconic soundtracks. With that first game surprisingly popular on the PlayStation 2, we would get 4 further sequels until 2007, and this includes 2 of the best games in the series, SSX Tricky and SSX 3. Then the series went silent, and it wouldn't be until 2010 when a new game was revealed called SSX Deadly Descents. For a series full of color and fun, this sudden darker tone and matching title led to the concern of many. Eventually, the Deadly Descent subtitle was dropped, and this was revealed to still be the lighthearted and fun arcade experience we all knew, but now with a blend of realism. Courses were now based in real-world locations, and the Deadly Descent part added in some new challenges. Characters now had access to different gadgets, like a wingsuit to fly over wide gaps, or armor to prevent damage from obstacles. Ultimately, this was an ambitious take on SSX that kept things fresh and pushed the series forward. So it's always been a shame EA never came out with another game. We've had other games like Steep, but nothing has ever filled the space this series left. And while SSX was only the start of EA Sports Big back in the day, this expanded into other arcade experiences like NBA Street, NFL Street, and FIFA Street. Games that focus more on flair, tricks, and style. But as EA Sports Big was phased out around the mid-2000s, so were all of these games. That was until 2012, where not just SSX returned, but so did FIFA Street. And like SSX, FIFA Street leaned more into realism than previous entries. However, this doesn't mean this newest FIFA Street turned away from its past. The game didn't go over the top in its arcade inspiration, and there was more attempt at authenticity, while still having an emphasis on utilizing skills and tricks. And while FIFA Street released to positive reviews, and EA continues to make FIFA games, now called EA Sports FC, nothing has been done with FIFA Street since. Now we all know Call of Duty is one of the biggest games out there, and at one point Call of Duty was deeply rooted in a World War II setting. But the series wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for Medal of Honor. Created by Steven Spielberg, the idea came from his film Saving Private Ryan, as he wanted a game that could be both entertaining and educational. While the concept changed over time, compared to the competition, Medal of Honor was always rooted in more personal stories. As Call of Duty gained the upper hand, Medal of Honor struggled, and by the time Modern Warfare pushed Call of Duty into a new direction, Medal of Honor took a step back. Then in 2010, a reboot simply called Medal of Honor pushed the series into the modern era, with it taking place during the war in Afghanistan. And the risk would be a major success for EA, with a sequel released 2 years later. But Medal of Honor Warfighter bombed hard. Warfighter had glitches and quality issues on launch, and it all resulted in low sales and poor critical reception. While EA had originally planned to alternate Medal of Honor and Battlefield releases, EA dropped Medal of Honor and focused solely on Battlefield. It wouldn't be until 2020 when EA revived Medal of Honor. However, in one of the oddest and most restrictive choices, EA and Respawn Entertainment brought the series back as a niche VR title. While Medal of Honor Above and Beyond went back to its World War II roots, the game went under the radar. And if Medal of Honor's future rested on the success of a VR title, then we'll likely never see another. But nothing was as big as the fumble of 2013's SimCity. What should have been a glorious return for this city builder became one big disaster and the death of the series. All because at launch the game required users to be connected online to play and save progress. However, server issues and network outages prevented people from playing and saving. EA was not prepared for just how many people were excited to play this game on day one, and server space had to be expanded. It was a whole mess. EA refused to give out refunds and instead offered a free game as compensation. SimCity had many patches, and despite developers saying they wouldn't add in an offline mode, around the 10th update, the game was finally playable offline. It's unknown how far support was meant to go for the game, but there was only one expansion and some smaller downloadable content, and then Maxis was done. While this was the end of mainline SimCity games, SimCity does live on in the form of a mobile game called SimCity Build It. That game released all the way back in 2014 and is surprisingly still going on to this day. Meanwhile, SimCity got some heavy competition by Cities Skylines, which took up the mantle and did so much more for this type of game. So even if EA were to bring back SimCity, they would have to do so much to get people excited while being better than Cities Skylines. And it's clear EA isn't interested in a new mainline entry, as their focus is on having Maxis pinch out every penny out of The Sims 4. Now when it comes to Syndicate, people probably don't realize that it's a reboot of a short-lived series from 1993. The original Syndicate and its 1996 sequel, Syndicate Wars. These were isometric, real-time tactical strategy games which took place within a dystopian future. And in the years to follow, there were attempts to revive the franchise, but it wouldn't be until 2012 when EA resurrected the series as a first-person shooter. And if anything, it's almost in the same vein as Deus Ex Human Revolution, at least in its art style and themes. What did make Syndicate stand out was its 4-player co-op multiplayer mode, which featured new, original levels and offered more freedom in completing goals. This was the highlight of the entire game, and is something many critics said should have been the game's focus. Unfortunately, Syndicate was a commercial failure, and it's likely EA will never bring Syndicate back. But in the time since Syndicate's release, more people have talked about this game, with many calling it a hidden gem. So what game series did EA break your heart with? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and ring that bell to be notified about future content. If you enjoyed this, check out this previous video on failed PlayStation franchises. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.